is basically a PUBG ripoff, but it's cartoony and you can build. October 3rd, 2017, the day duos and supply drops were added. I had just met up with my friends to walk to school, and I was explaining to them a game that I had downloaded and played the night before. Oh, nice. Sounds like fun. What's it called? Fortnite. Okay, now just quickly before this video properly starts, I just want to say that by no means am I a blind Fortnite hater. In fact, I don't even hate Fortnite. The amount of money and time I've put into this game is rivaled only by other games such as Minecraft, CSGO, Rainbow Six, and COD. I've played this game from the very beginning, and up until recently, I've followed its every move, and seen it go from building a 1x1 around your teammates so you can revive them as 200 IQ, to the monstrosity that you see today. And I also want to be clear that in terms of what Fortnite has done for esports as a whole, is unmatched by any game in the last decade. And while I think it's one of the worst esports in terms of competitive playability, I cannot think of a better game to really bring esports into the mainstream. Now, without any further ado, let's start the video. The reason I think Fortnite is one of the worst esports really boils down to 5 points, and they are the RNG dependence, the developers, skill gap, community, and personalities. Let's start with the one I feel is the least impactful, but still makes a difference. We have the personalities. Now let's play a game real quick. When I say a word, you need to tell me the first person that comes to your mind, okay? 3, 2, 1, Fortnite. Now, nowadays, most people's minds will immediately go to people such as Tfue, Ninja, or Mongrel, which all of them, let's be honest, are known for skill, but if you look past their skill, they're toxic, they rage, and they're in controversies a lot. Less so Mongrel. However, if you were asked this question in Season 2 or 3, you'd most likely say people like Daquan, Ninja, TSM Myth, and Drake. People who are not just known because of their skill, but their personalities too. For example, Myth and Daquan both rarely play Fortnite nowadays, and their streams still do well. Obviously, Ninja has changed in this time, from a guy who seemed to blow up out of nowhere because how funny he was and insane at the game he was. Now he's a borderline celebrity. Next, community. In CSGO, a large amount of players have nicknames and memes associated with them, or considered some sort of CSGO celebrity, such as Doja Sex God, Nothing, Pasha Biceps, and Stewie the Smoke Criminal. I can't think of a single meme or nickname to do with players, and there's really only a couple players that can be considered a celebrity, people like Mongrel and Benji Fishy. Also, if you go on the Fortnite competitive subreddit, I cannot find a single meme or joke or anything to do with any of the players. Think of it like friends you've been friends with for years. You always have that bond with them because of those previous memories and experiences. There's nothing like that in Fortnite. Okay, I get I'm using CSGO as an example a lot, but it's the esport I'm the most familiar with, and most people would consider it like a top 5 esport anyway. One more thing is that I cannot think of any standout moments in Fortnite that aren't bugs or extremely overpowered things. I think of like 3 things. The clip where the sword was first added and someone got like 10 kills in a minute. The time Myth was pushed off a side of a mountain after an editing glitch made him fly over the edge. And when the cube in Season 5 suddenly turned on 0 gravity and half the lobby fell to their death. I can think of infinite moments in CSGO. Cold Zero's jumping AWP, Simple throwing the AWP over the wall, both of Nico's Deagle aces on Cash, when Fnatic bought 4 AWPs on Dust 2, and 3 Cloud9 players all died in the same molly. And even though I very loosely followed Rocket League, I can still think of moments like the goal. Once again, Fortnite lacks in having any of these, which means the community has nothing to talk about and bond them together. When this video comes out, I will be live streaming on Twitch, so if you want to ask me some questions about the videos, or just come and hang out with me, please join me at twitch.tv/Lukes_play. Finally, onto the gameplay. I'm going to talk about Epic Games. Good old Epic. The devs who were godsends in Season 3 and 4, and now just ruin the game with every update, whether it's getting rid of a gun that's been meta since the game began, ruining what pros have learnt, forcing them to adopt a new playstyle just because they wanted the game to feel fresh, or doing the opposite and adding things so blatantly overpowered that it makes you question how it was ever approved to make it into the game. Example, the pump, probably the most used gun in Fortnite, getting removed just before the biggest tournament in esports history. to also adding things like the baller. Here, like, just listen. So imagine you're playing COD, you're playing free-for-all, and there's 20 players instead of a regular 10. So whenever you shoot, there's always someone just around the corner ready to kill you. But there's a twist. Some people get to choose a bulletproof car as one of their perks. It takes about a magazine to destroy. Oh yeah, but also it has boosters, so it can go even faster. Oh yeah, and also, it can climb up the side of buildings. And that's not even the most overpowered thing. The sword and mech suit were both 50 times worse. And it usually takes weeks for problems like this to get slightly nerfed, and months or a new season to fix the problem completely. Next up for our rinsing is the RNG, and oh god. This, along with my next point, are probably the biggest problems. Everything except for building and editing is total RNG. This isn't always a problem in games such as Hearthstone, which uses RNG as a tool. CSGO and COD also both use RNG, but they make it so that your gun is less accurate when moving and not aiming down sights, which means you can't just be sprinting around and jumping, hitting headshots, as this would be overpowered. But as a whole, most games try to keep it to a minimum, and only use it to stop things from being broken. Fortnite, however, does not use it as a tool. And sure, for the most part, they only use RNG to keep things fair. The amount of things they need to try to keep fair makes the game extremely luck-based. For example, they can't really control where the zone goes. If it went to the same place every game, then things would just be extremely repetitive and boring. And the best places to land would become bloodbaths, and the lobby size would get made tiny off spawn. And if you didn't want to land in one of the meta spots, then you just get murdered coming into zone. And another thing, you can't really control where the loot spawns, as it would make certain areas too popular. However, I do like what Epic did with the vaults, as it has a high risk, high reward aspect. However, you could just get lucky and get a chest in one house and get the same loot anyway. But there are so many fixes for other problems, such as bloom and shots not hitting. Especially with shotguns. In order to fix bloom, you could just add 3 modes. The default bloom mode, which players who are newer to the game would still use and can still perform kind of well. A recoil mode where there's less bloom, but the crosshair's much bouncier, which is good for players who are decent, but it doesn't have as much potential for damage as the third mode does, which is a recoil pattern similar to CSGO and Valorant, which obviously is much harder to use, but if you can master it, then you'll be able to dish out way more damage than the other two. In addition, this could also help solve the problem with aim assist, as controller players won't be able to do a spray pattern as well as mouse and keyboard players, which would help level the playing field. Finally, the last problem, the skill gap. RNG and skill gap go hand in hand, because the more you depend on luck, the less skill needed. But in addition to this, things such as being in third person so that you can see around walls negatively affects the skill gap, and bloom and bad hit registration also makes it much harder for better players to consistently outperform the worst players. I mean, the easiest example of this is the Fortnite World Cup, a tournament which was the most hyped esport event ever, and a random 16-year-old kid no one had ever heard of won. I'm not denying Booga is incredible at the game. However, not a single person thought he would win, and he did. I haven't even heard of him since the tournament. Also, he won when he was 16, and the average age of an esports player is 21. That too is the age people statistically peak. I hope that one's true, I just stole that from Sex Education. So, why is a 16-year-old won? That's not even close to 21. Now, I'm sorry if this video sounded really negative. I do really want the best for Fortnite, so I can enjoy replay it again, and the first thing I feel they can do is interest people who want to play competitively again. Anyway, that's it. Epic. Please. I miss this game.